live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Blake Ruffino. This is Are You Serious Sports. I hope that you liked that opening from the very beginning. LSU by 30. That's not happening again, at least not this year. But I am here to bring you some good spirit. I am here to tell you maybe the tide could turn. Because if not, it could be a long weekend. But some things that LSU is going to do, I think, to turn the tide and maybe make this game a lot closer. How do I see this game going ultimately? Ultimately, how do I see it going? We will talk about that. Also, guys, I appreciate all y'all joining. Do us a favor, hit the like and hit the share everywhere that you're following us right now. Hit that retweet, share. I know that button is available to you. Also, if you're listening to us on the podcast, do us a favor. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to us there. We greatly appreciate that with our good partners over at Believe. Let's get to a couple of these comments before we get going. And also, Drew DeArmond, who covers the Alabama Crimson Tide, will be joining us around 7:20. Drew's been on the show a bunch of times. I want to break this game down with him. I want to break down Alabama. I think that they have one of the better offensive line, not just in the country, but maybe that we've seen in the last 10 years. How does he see this game going? Let's get a realistic look from the opponent's aspect in this game. So we'll break that game down with him. Also, we will go around the SEC. I'm pretty hot with my picks right now. Oh, in the SEC of the last 3 weeks, I'm 12-3, y'all. 12-3. Yes. Two of those losses coming, at least two of the losses coming from LSU. So we'll see. Maybe I should start being a little bit more realistic on the LSU Tigers, maybe, huh? But nevertheless, 12-3 over the last couple of weeks. So we will take a trip around the SEC. Dylan Landry says, "Let's go." He's always in there. He's always on top of it, y'all. Always on top of it. He says, "All hail Burbank Joe," meaning Joe Burrow. Hell yeah. All hail Burbank Joe. Guys, do y'all remember? Y'all realize that man went 18 of 20 for 258 yards and 3 scores in the first half of last year's Alabama game? Like, y'all realize that now that we're seeing what's on the field for LSU this year? Yikes. Craig Schilling says, "AYS, damn right I am." Damn right you are. Derek says, "The mentality of these fans is insane. Don't play because you're scared of getting killed? Question mark. Shows some pride at least." Yeah, Derek. I mean, people are scared, man. Stephen Miller, who was on with us last night from the Maxi Minute, says, "That damn Dylan Landry, the shooter McGavin, always being first." Ryan Mayer says, "What's up?" Dakota says, "Go Tigers. Hope everyone is doing well today." Chris Barnwell, what's up, Chris? Says, "What's happening, Blake Ruffino?" What's going on, Chris? Hope everybody is doing well. Dylan asks, "Who's opting out now?" We'll see. I don't think anybody's going to be opting out this week, but we'll just have to wait and see over the next couple of weeks. But guys, before we get started, we do have a jam-packed show. Like we mentioned, hit that like and hit that share and share into some groups. But as always, before we get started, guys, you got to go check my friends. And I know a couple of you messaged me today about going over there and getting your car serviced over at GM Varnado & Sons. GM Varnado & Sons has faithfully been serving your Denham Springs and Baton Rouge area for over 62 years. With their highly trained technicians, there's absolutely nothing that they can't do. Drive chain repair, ORV repair, big rig overhauls, motorhome chassis, routine maintenance. Slipping on my words. Tire repair, tire rotations. No job is too big or too small over at GM. Give them a call today at 225-664-9992. That's 225-664-9992. And tell them Blake Ruffino sent you by. Also, if that car is just breaking down and ain't going to get you nowhere, you got to go see my good friend, Mr. Woody Clark, over at Robinson Brothers Ford. 11455 Airline Highway, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. All you got to do is ask for Woody. You can give him a call today and set up an appointment with him at 225-603-5432. 225-603-5432. That's 225-603-5432. And go see all of their beautiful inventory over at Robinson Brothers Ford Lincoln. Let's see. Aaron Webb says, "Blake, thoughts on who they finished the class with?" I mean, it would appear that Tristan Lee and Corey Foreman and a couple of guys, Mason Smith, aren't going to be making their commitments until January the 2nd. So we'll see how this class shakes out a little bit. I think that LSU doesn't make a very big splash maybe on the 16th, but maybe get some commitments on the 2nd on that big, what is it, the high school bowl game that guys, not bowl game, but the Under Armour game or All-American game, whatever it is. But they announced that they'll be doing that today. So we'll have to see on that. Break that window. He called me Monday, guys. Jeff in the Borough called me Monday, and I just couldn't take it. I love him. Chris says, no optimism from me. Okay. Well, Chris, let's break this down because I think there's something important that LSU fans need to see here. Win or loss. Now, Miles Agnew just asked this question, who starts at quarterback Saturday? I think it's going to be Max Johnson. I fully believe. I don't know that. I haven't heard anything. The one thing I did kind of remotely hear is said that they're going to give Max the nod, but they're still battling it out. We will know more tomorrow on who's going to get that start. But I would expect maybe Max because of what happened at the end of that game. And because, look, Max Johnson and Eric Gilbert kind of have a connection. And that's where I want to kind of go with this a little bit to start off. If you notice when Max Johnson went into the game last week and they actually let him loose and throwing the football, something was very interesting that made me remember something about Max Johnson and Eric Gilbert. Did y'all know that Max Johnson and Eric Gilbert play Pee Wee football together? So wait a second. You get out your mama's van, that old Villinger van, and you open the gate or you open the door, and you're getting out that Villinger van with your pads on. You got the big old thick hip pads. You remember that come up past your love handles? Well, maybe not to all of you, but for me, your love handles. And you're going to play a team. You're going to play a team for Pee Wee football, y'all. I know that we're having a little bit of glitch here, but a little bit of Pee Wee football. And all of a sudden, you see Max Johnson and you see Eric Gilbert, and you mean to tell me that your first thought's not, holy hell, I got to go up against those two mammoths? The smallest one's height is 6'5", and I got to go up against them? Either way, when Max Johnson got in the game, who did he target? He targeted Terrace Marshall and Eric Gilbert. He tried to force the ball a lot to Eric Gilbert, which will bode well, I think, offensively for this team. Max could, and with his mobility, probably show that you could do a little bit more RPO game, which LSU has want to implement, but has been unable to do so. But I don't know if that's going to stop anything. I do not know that that's going to stop anything. What I'm looking for is just consistency. Because you know what's really weird with this team? They have one great offensive performance, and then the next week they stink it up. South Carolina and then Auburn. And then you turn right around, you have a pretty decent, okay, not great, but you win the game. You score 27 points. You hold on to the ball for 40-plus minutes, and you beat Arkansas. The next week you come out and you laid a turd nugget, a complete turd nugget. Rudy Poo doesn't smell that bad about how bad your offense was last week. Is this a week that they can turn it on a little bit? Now, again, and I'm going to get criticized for this, and I understand that. And that's fine. That is completely fine. But I don't know if LSU is going to be able to go out there and win the game. But that's not what we're looking for right now, not with this young team. You want to see your offensive line get better. You want to see them be able to run the football. And as Mike Scarborough even mentioned yesterday, you want to see your young team go out there and just make something happen. Make something happen. Play with some energy. Let's see. Devin Staub, what's up, man? He said that face mask too, Stephen Miller. What y'all talking about? Oh, Devin Staub says, guarantee you Maxwell Johnson rocked the elbow pads in Pee Wee football like his pappy. I'm sure he did. Hell yeah, he did. And it was white and it had the little strip on it right here. Hell yeah, he did. But as Derek says, Max can run a bit and Bama struggles with running quarterbacks. Yes, historically they have. I mean, look what Joe did when he was able to get out in space last year. I'm not saying that I think that this game is going to be an upset. I'm not saying that. Dakota, the question to your answer is yes. I'm not saying that, y'all. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to take my shot. And I know that we're going to do the predictions tomorrow. I know that we're going to go out there. I'm going to let all you guys put in your predictions, and we'll put them up on the comments. I think LSU keeps this game close. I don't want to – when I say close, I'm not talking about 34-31. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is I think that this game comes close, and I think that LSU is able to make some stops. If you, and look, you're going to say, Blake, this is nowhere to being close, but I've seen comments today all over my Twitter, all over my AYS Facebook, all over Instagram. Somebody even said that they thought that Alabama was going to beat LSU 84-6. That's not happening. LSU's also not going to get beat 77-2. 77-2, you mean to tell me that LSU's going to get a safety, but Bama's going to score 77 points? Yeah, okay. That realistically, I don't see happening. I think that this team is showing that they have a little bit too much pride. But to say that they won't come close to covering possibly with the 28, I could see that. But if LSU keeps this game anywhere close to that and they're able to score, hell, at the end of the night, if we're sitting up 42-24, that's exactly what Texas A&M, the number 5 team in the country, did last week. Well, Blake, Texas A&M's poo. You can't say that they're poo because they did technically beat you last week. This team's got the talent, y'all. I keep saying it. I keep hammering it over there. Boom, boom, boom. Everybody keeps asking me. I go on these radio shows. I hate having to defend LSU. Blake, LSU doesn't have the talent. Where? They're not playing like it, but they have the talent. I don't want to hear that anymore. I don't want to hear anymore that LSU doesn't have talent. It's young talent. Well, Blake, the offensive line has a lot of juniors and seniors on there. Still inexperienced. Still some of them out of shape. The best offensive line last year, everybody left outside of Austin Deculus. How's Austin Deculus doing this year? Oh, and by the way, when's the last time you heard Austin Deculus's name being mentioned on doing something bad? Oh, so he has – wait, the one guy on offense, or really the two guys on offense that have had game experience, they were your two best weapons on offense technically? And Austin Deculus, who's not really a weapon, and Terrace Marshall? That's interesting. If you really see there and think about it. Let's see. Someone said, who's joking? I don't know. These comments are going crazy tonight, y'all. I just see, for whatever reason, I don't see any, and then all of a sudden I see 60. Not really 60, but like 20. Brandon asks, Blake, I just want to see LSU compete on offense and defense, and please score against them, please. Yeah, I want to see them score too. I think that they do. Colin says, I said what I said. So, Colin, I must have missed what you said. Oh, here it is. He says, I'll say it. It will be an upset. F that. Give me the Tigers 28-24. Ooh, Colin, I love you, but I don't know, Big Daddy. I don't know. I just don't know if I could see the Tigers winning 28-24. Do I want them to? Yes. Do I want them to? Yes. I don't know if they will, but I think that they're going to keep this close. I think that they're going to keep this much more closer. Oh, Colin just says that's me and Ryan arguing about LSU. Look, Ryan's going to let you LSU fans know. He's going to let you know. Ryan, you know what I think is going to happen after LSU loses to Alabama this week? You know what I think? They go out the following week and they absolutely beat the dog manure out of Florida. I'm just joking. Or am I? Says the big Florida fan. Chris Barnwell says no offseason killed us. With coaching changes and a scheme change on defense. Yeah, Chris, you can say that, but look how much better they're playing. You held the number 5 team in the country to 13 points. You're playing fantastic at times. Leading the SEC on third down conversions on defense over the last 5 weeks at 25%. Give that to me. Y'all, again, I'm not a huge stat guy, but I like stats when I see it on third down. The 3 stats, if y'all want to know that I look for: third down conversion, what did you do in the red zone, how did you run it, and how many rushing attempts did you have? That's the 3. Well, and turnovers. I should put so 4. If you're leading in that category and you're doing that category, I guarantee you I can tell you how the game goes. Guarantee you I can tell you how that game goes and exactly what that game looks like. No question about it. LSU's going to have to find a philosophy and stick to it. Stick to it. I don't know if they will offensively. I just don't know if they will. Dom says Palmer, Boutte, Kirkland, and Coy, one of them, have to come out and shine. Without Marshall and Math, Eric will get them. Yeah, Eric's got to shine, and why I think that him and Max could have a good connection, because it's not like 2 guys that have never played together. This is kind of deadly if you start thinking about it. You mean to tell me 2 guys who have known each other for a very long time that already have a connection? And look, I'm on this Terrace Marshall thing. I'm just going to throw another thought out there. It might be a little bit of a blessing in disguise. He's not going to be back next year, and you can build chemistry with the guys that are going to be back. Not saying that I don't want him. Not saying that I don't want him at all. Peggy Red says, is Palmer better? No idea what happened to him to have seen him. Yeah, I think he's going to be back. Brandon says, who dat? We need to get to give them Saints some credit. Their defense has heart. Yeah, they do. Kate says, can we get some 3rd and shorts and 3rd and longs? Go Tigers. Well, yeah, you're going to have to do that to win. You're definitely going to have to do that to win. Craig Dugas says, after we lose to Bama, hopefully we get rid of Edward O and crew. Man, it's crazy how what a year makes. Look, this is something that I've been seeing over the last week. Over the last week, I've been seeing fans calling for Ed Orgeron's head. That's interesting to me. That's very interesting. No one was saying fire Ed Orgeron this time last year. Hell, it's not even been a year. Okay, Drew DeArmond from 97.7 ESPN is going to be our guest. Let's go ahead and get to Drew DeArmond. But before we get to him, go see our good friend, Mr. John Patton, over at Area Home Lending. 225-663-2500. That's 225-663-2500. Tell him Blake Ruffino sent you by. If you have any mortgage questions, he can definitely answer them. And Drake Law Firm, personal injury, criminal defense, real estate, and successions. There's no law firm better and more equipped for you. Go see him today at 154 West Pine Street, downtown Ponchatoula. That's 154 West Pine Street, Ponchatoula, Louisiana. Tell him Blake Ruffino sent you on by. Okay, we're going to get to Drew DeArmond. I really want to break down this LSU-Alabama game with him. Drew's always been on and been fantastic for us. So I really want to break this game down with Drew.
Hello.
Mr. Drew DeArmond.
Yes, sir.
What's going on, my friend? How we doing tonight?
Doing well, Blake. How are you?
Well, you got some really anxious LSU fans, Drew. They're not doing too hot right now.
I can imagine, man. They got a day of reckoning coming.
Well, you said they got a day of reckoning, Drew. Let's start here. Look, I told the guys that are part of AYS weeks ago of my thoughts of Alabama and especially this offensive line. Drew, I'm not just saying this because you're on the phone. I've mentioned it a couple of times on the shows. I think that this might be the best offensive line for Alabama and really that we've seen over the last decade. They seem to be a big catalyst in this offense and how things are moving. Drew, is that the biggest surprise in how good this offensive line has played over just this year holistically with the crazy offseason?
Well, I mean, I think there was high expectations, Blake. I think everybody knew that Evan Neal was playing out of position, out of necessity last year to get the best 5 on the field. He was going to move from left guard to right tackle, but he had all the ability in the world. Now, for things to go perfectly, and really honestly so far from an offensive line perspective, they have. Emil Ekiyor, had to step in at right guard and kind of take the bull by the horns to be the missing piece. There's no doubt that he has. I think he turned the corner against Georgia when he really played at a high level. Landon Dickerson had played center for most of last season. I think everybody already knew that he could do so. And so they were confident that he could be the center and be a physical presence there. If not, there was a young player like Darian Dalcourt that could step in as a sophomore if he was ready. And then Landon could play left guard. But really, you knew that if Emil Ekiyor improved as much as he could and could be that fifth guy, the best five would involve Landon Dickerson being at center. He has done a great job. It's amazing because he didn't play center at all in high school, and he didn't play center at Florida State. He didn't play center until he got to Alabama, but he played, and he started at left guard last year, then switched to center. So I got to give Kyle Flood a lot of credit for that. But also, Deontay Brown switched from right guard to left guard. But Deontay's only problem had always been off the field and keeping himself in good shape and making sound decisions. I think Dr. Matt Ray and David Ballou, the new strength coaches, have had a big impact with him. He's as good as any guard in the SEC. He's a road grader when he's in there. He did have an issue with a concussion earlier this year, but he settled in. And then Alex Leatherwood, I think everybody knew he was a natural left tackle, played right guard back in 2018. But I think everybody knew that left tackle was where to make his money. And he has been really good. I mean, he gave up a sack late in the Auburn game. He's been a leader. He's played at a very high level. And as a group, I would agree with you. I think this is the best Alabama offensive line since 2012.
Yeah, Drew, it just seems, I just thought that all offensive lines across the board with no real true offseason would struggle. The left side of that Alabama offensive line, just watching the film and watching the games break down, has been absolutely nasty. Neal has made all the right calls and really gave Mac Jones a lot of time to throw and make good decisions. They're just absolutely fantastic in everything that they do. Drew DeArmond from 97.7 ESPN Huntsville Talking Ball is our guest. We have someone in here, Drew, says they listen to y'all listen to you every morning. Chris Barnhill says that he listens to you every morning, so he's glad that we have you on. Drew, what do you see holistically in reference to this game Saturday? A lot of LSU fans, think one fan today on the prediction score said that they thought it was going to be 84-6 Bama. A lot of people think it's going to be extremely lopsided. How do you see it, my friend?
Well, I do see it as extremely lopsided. I made a prediction on my show, and I'll say it here. I picked 66-7. Similar Ole Miss beatdown that we saw in Oxford in 2018. And the main reason I do that is because, Blake, everybody knows how important the Alabama-Auburn game is and what a rivalry. But this Alabama team has had one game circled all year long, and that's LSU. Because the streak ended, LSU had a great football team, one of the best we've ever seen in the history of the SEC and in college football. And so and they remember what happened after the game, some of the comments by the players, and, of course, Coach Orgeron. Now, Orgeron's comments weren't supposed to get out, but unfortunately for him, they did. And so I don't really think Alabama cares who's on the other side for LSU. They certainly wish in the back of their minds probably that Jamar Chase was playing, that Terrace Marshall Jr., and it was the same kind of build-up. In other words, the two top teams in the Western Division, and that LSU had kept Miles Brennan healthy. But, again, Alabama had a lot of adversity with injuries last year. LSU's had this season and with the opt-out. And I really don't think they care who's in front of them, just as long as it's an LSU helmet and jersey. And I think they're ready to exact some revenge, because you never hear Nick Saban talk about revenge, yet he did earlier this week in his press conference, which I thought was enlightening, because I really think this football team has been looking forward to going to Red State. They've had more success there than anyone ever in college football. They actually have a winning record in Baton Rouge, which everybody knows how tough a place to play it is, especially at night. And again, with Nick Saban being in his 14 years at Alabama, Blake, the biggest rival for Alabama has been LSU, because simply it's been big boy football, and that's what it's come down to in the West. You have to beat LSU to go to reach your goals. And it's not that way this year, but certainly I think for LSU anyway, but for Alabama it is. they're trying to win a national championship, just like LSU was on a mission last year. Alabama is this year. And when you look at LSU and the shape they're in right now, 2 freshman quarterbacks that have struggled, an offensive line that has not performed that well, the only chance they've got to stay in the game is to control it on the ground with Ty Davis-Price and John Emery. And yet I don't know if the O-line is good enough to do that. And I really am not sure, that LSU has enough weapons outside now. With Terrace Marshall Jr. opting out, you look at their lineup. Their leading receiver is Arik Gilbert, the tight end. So I don't know that they've got the options to make enough plays against an improving Alabama secondary outside come Saturday night.
Drew, I'm right there with you. And listen, I said last night on our show that I thought, when Nick Saban was asked, his quote was, "Look, we don't have many revenge games, but we love them," and gave a little like smirk and chuckle. Drew, I'm just being honest. I said, "Oh shit." This ain't gonna be good, because look, he's not. I've never seen that from Nick. Look, and I've listened to pretty much every press conference he's ever done. I've never heard that, and you're right. They've had that game circled, and Ed Orgeron in his coaching show just someone announced that TJ Finley, shockingly to some, that is going to be the starter. And Drew, I think that this game could get ugly. You mentioned something on keeping it close, and something that I've been kind of getting criticized a little bit. I thought that this LSU defense was getting a lot better over the last 5 weeks. Had a great performance last week against Texas A&M, only holding them to 13 points. Now that we're seeing a little bit more of Bo Pelini and LSU defensively, is that something you were like, well, hey, maybe they're riding the ship a little bit, or do you want to see a little bit more when they face Alabama and Florida?
Well, I mean, I'll give them credit. I do think, Blake, they played better last week defensively. Certainly, I think they held Kellen Mond to 11-34. They didn't allow the A&M to consistently move the football. Isaiah Spiller did run it well, though, which if I'm LSU, that would worry me, because I think we all know what Najee Harris did against LSU last year, especially in that second half. And honestly, that's why Alabama came back to have a chance to win the game late, because Najee was so good, LSU wanted no part of it. I mean, just people that I speak with, and like Mike Detillier, who's so connected in Louisiana, he felt like last year that Najee Harris was a load, was probably one of the best backs he saw in person, and said, look, LSU could not contain him. And right now, Blake, I think he made the right decision coming back. He looks better this year. He's quicker. He's faster. He's been able to break more big runs. He had another big one last week against Auburn, 39 yards to the house. So if I'm Alabama, the first thing I do is I want to send a physical message. I'm going to give them a dose of Najee Harris, but no disrespect to Kellen Mond, but Mac Jones ain't Kellen Mond. We saw in the matchup with Texas A&M, Alabama dismantled them. Mac Jones has been a revelation. I thought he had a chance to be have 23 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Okay, that's not what I was expecting. I thought he could be a guy that could help Alabama win a championship, but I thought he would have to, that he wouldn't be the guy. I thought it'd be Najee Harris, and Najee's a huge part of it. I thought it would be more the traditional run football play action kind of deal. But Alabama's been able to run. They threw the ball to set up a run against Auburn last week. They've been able to trust Mac. He's as good a deep ball thrower as I've seen at Alabama. And right now, that LSU secondary has struggled all year. They were bad last week, but they're going to have their best game by far of the season to stay in this thing, because even without a guy like Jalen Waddle, who I thought was the most explosive receiver in the country, you look at Sark, and that's why he should be the Frank Broyles Award winner for that top assistant in college football. Last week, for example, against Auburn, he was basically down his top 2 spot receivers. Slade Bolden, who I know you and your listeners like a lot, was slowed. He only played a handful of snaps. And yet, they found a way to get Jaleel Billings involved. He's become a new weapon. And so it's been really amazing to watch him come his own and watch Sark get him touches. And so now, Slade will play this week. It'd be better when you've got the best receiver in the country in Devontae Smith now, proven that because of what he's done without the Jalen Waddle. And then you got Mechie, who's done such a great job in the red zone. and then you've got those two tight ends, Miller Forstall, Hill Billings, and then Najee Harris. I think it's too many weapons for LSU to have to deal with. And Alabama hasn't been slowed by anyone, and I don't expect LSU to slow them much on Saturday night.
I don't either. Drew, I said that, just me personally, I think if they can, for whatever reason, hold Alabama to 35, 38 points, it's a victory for LSU. I mean, seriously. And look, this is just my opinion. I think that Tua was fantastic last year. I think that he's going to do great things and one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen in college football, right? However, do you think, and I hate to make this comparison, but do you think that this offense this year is even better than last year's? Because honestly, Drew, when I look at them, I think to myself, man, you don't know what they're going to do. They're always off balance. They keep you off balance. You don't really know what's coming next, and they just keep popping you and hitting you and hitting you. In your opinion, do you think that this offense is better? And if so, where do you think that they've been better at?
Well, I do think in some ways it's more balanced. I think it's played more physical this year. Of course, you have two and those great receivers, so you're going to throw the football. But I think with Najee Harris and the tight ends, and they brought in Carl Tucker to get transferred from North Carolina, and they put Kendall Ray out there to give them some more physicality. So I really think that the running game has been better and more consistent. So to me, I think it's been a more balanced attack. Certainly, I think in some ways, Mac has been even more efficient than Tua was. Of course, Tua being in and out of the lineup didn't help things. But I do think with the growth you've seen from Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle being a bigger part of the offense, remember, Blake, before he got injured, you saw Jalen Waddle was probably the most popular in the country. He already had 550 yards receiving in this per game. He wasn't a big part of the offense last in the season when he put on that show against Auburn. So I think made the offense maybe even more explosive, and that's kind of stunning to say when you had Judy and Ruggs last year. But in many ways, I think the more attack. I think it's a more balanced attack. I think they've been more efficient in the red zone. And I just think right now they've been far and away the top offense in the country.
I mean, Drew, it's why you play the game. Look, I went back and looked today. The last time the LSU beat Bama in Baton Rouge was that 24-21 game, the double reverse to a tight end, vintage Les Miles, like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, okay, Les, whatever you want to do. This game has just in its history over the last 20 years just been, man, the game. And Drew, there's not going to be a lot of fans in this one. Do you think that takes the luster out of it with all, it not being in Death Valley on a Saturday night?
Well, I mean, certainly they're playing it at night and it's going to be in Death Valley, but it does take some of the luster away not to have the crazy crowd, because even with LSU struggling this year, it would have been sold out, would have been crazy. They have great fans. Everyone knows that. And I think it would have juiced the game a little bit more for the players. What they've done a good job this year at Alabama is creating their own energy. And I think they've done that. And I don't think they're going to lack for motivation against LSU Saturday night. But yeah, and then for LSU to have struggled some, because, I talked to you on your show throughout this season. I thought LSU was going to, and they still have talent. They still have players. I thought, so they do have a chance in this game. I thought that this was going to be the top two teams in the West, and once again decided. But she's had a lot of problems this year. I think Coach Orgeron, with Scott Linehan, with, and with, as you said, both Lane, I think he's made some hires that maybe didn't fit. And then I think a lot of players, I think what he learned a valuable lesson on how it is to be the hunted. He never wanted Ole Miss enough to know. And then last year, LSU, what a season, National Coach of the Year. Everything they got, they earned and they deserve. But you learn how difficult it is to do what Nick Saban has done since 2008, Blake, for 13 straight years, having Alabama right in the mix for the college football playoff and a national championship. It's so difficult to do. Urban Meyer burned out. He couldn't keep it up. So it's difficult. There's only Nick Saban. There's only one Alabama. The closest is Dabo Swinney at Clemson and what he's done. But I think we all understand and that right now Clemson's league helps them out because it's not as strong. To do what Saban has done in the SEC, and if he's able to run the table in an all-SEC schedule this year, 10 straight, I don't think he's going to be coach of the year because of what Sam Pittman's done, what, of course, Elijah Drinkwitz has done, but he should be under consideration for National Coach of the Year because you know how tough the SEC still is.
Drew, and listen, something that I saw from just last week and talking, to I'm not going to say the Pete Golden camp, but, they're high energy over here in Hammond. I mean, look at this team holistically. They play with, and you talk about bringing their own energy they have. And look, you got to give Pete Golden a little bit of credit too. I think that this defense has played with a lot of energy. Drew, they're making tackles in space over the last 2 years. They struggled with. You look at last week, they're doing great things out in space, which is very interesting. I thought that they've been playing well too. Drew, what's one thing from Alabama that possibly you've seen that they have to clean up as the playoffs, as the SEC championship game is coming up close? Is there something out there that kind of worries you about Alabama right now?
Well, I mean, you always worry about injuries. That's something you can't control. You still worry about defensively if they face a top-level quarterback because, look, I mean, they've played much better in the last month on defense. Like, they now lead the SEC in scoring defense at a little over 18 points per game. But at the same time, they have not faced somebody like a Kyle Trask who they could face down the road against Florida. But you don't know how they're going to react. We remember what happened against Ole Miss. But you have to live by the mantra Nick Saban does. Either you get better or you get worse. They have gotten better. I do think what's been special about this defense is some of the true freshmen that have been interjected that are getting better, because I think you've seen Malachi Moore and the impact he's made, which is almost Minka level. That's stunning to say how good Minka Fitzpatrick was. You understand that.
Mm-hmm.
You saw him in his 3 years at Alabama. But I got to say, too, Surtain has really come into his own as the best corner in the country, in my opinion. Josh Jobe had an outstanding Iron Bowl and has gotten a lot better in coverage. But the freshmen are the key. Malachi Moore, you see him. Brian Branch had an interception last week, Blake. He's got a chance to be special. You've got, a linebacker like Will Anderson, who's a true freshman, got his first sack of his career, leading the SEC in pressures. But the big key is number 50, Tim Smith. You'll see a lot of him Saturday. The run defense for Alabama was spotty early, but getting him in the lineup and how disruptive he's been has been a huge key for the Tide. He has really improved their run defense, no doubt about it. And down the stretch against teams like Florida, they need Christian Barmore and guys like, Tim Smith to be disruptive and get after the QB so they don't have to live and die blitzing, which they haven't. And I just, I'm really excited about this defense. But again, the one thing where you temper it is they haven't played in a while a level quarterback. Matt Corral hurt them some. But really the biggest problem against Ole Miss was they couldn't get off the field on third down and stop the run. Doing a lot better job of doing that. But again, if you play somebody like a Kyle Trask or a Trevor Lawrence, that would be my worry, because those are first-round draft choice type guys, Heisman candidates at quarterback. You want to see how the defense would react.
I agree, and I think that usually this game for both teams, Drew, was a hey, let's see what it looks like. I know that it was no one really believed in LSU last year until they could not. Look, if you're going to be on top of the mountain, you got to knock the guy off that's been on top of that mountain. And I think that as the season goes on with Trask and LSU does have some talent out there still. One last question, Drew, and we'll get you on out here. Drew DeArmond from Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN is our guest. Drew, there's a couple of games inside the game. One thing that we've talked a lot about this week is Derek Stingley and his performance last year against Devonta Smith. To me, this is a matchup that reminds me of a Julio Jones versus Patrick Peterson, two great guys that went against each other back and forth, and we all remember how that goes. Maybe that one, but is there some things that you're looking inside of this game that will be another game inside a game this Saturday?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I want to see, how much pride LSU has. Because they're a program, man. These guys have won a lot of games. I have a lot of respect for LSU. I said going into this year I was not going to underestimate Ed Ogeron and the moves he's made. They haven't gone well, but I watching these games, I've always said it was big boy football. You measure yourself, you know how good you are on defense, you know how tough you have to be to play LSU, no matter if it's in Bryant-Denny Stadium or if it's in Tiger Stadium. I want to see if this Alabama offensive line. I think LSU is going to load the box. They have to try to take something away, Blake, and I think they're going to do what Auburn did. They're going to try to slow Najee Harris down. They know Najee hurt them last year, so they are going to challenge Mac Jones and these receivers. And Bo Pelini, is he going to play zone? Because he's really known for playing man. It's blown up in his face, Song. But can those LSU corners? I want to see, can Devontae Smith the matchup I'm going to watch is Devontae Smith and Stingley. Are they going to put Stingley on Devontae Smith again? Smith got the better of him last year, but that Stingley, as talented as he is, has been chomping at the bit to go at him again for Alabama. Are they going to let him be on an island with him all night long? That's the matchup I want to see. Stingley, who is as talented as any corner in the country, against who I think should be the Biletnikoff winner in Devontae Smith.
I'm right there with you, Drew, and I know that his dad's been on radio too, talking about like that's a one game and the one person that they've circled because of what happened last year. So we'll definitely see. And I'm with you on Bo Pelini. Play, sprinkle in some zone, dog. If you're gonna give up points, try to do something different. But Drew, you've been awesome as always, my man. Tell everybody where they can find you. I know they've seen it on the card, but give them one more chance of where they can listen to you every good morning.
Yeah, 7 to 9 a.m. Talking ball. Scott Tyson and myself on ESPN 97.7 Zone. We love the interaction. We know a lot of your listeners probably tune in on Facebook, and we always enjoy being a part of your show. They can listen to us each and every morning, and most mornings we are on Facebook Live, so they can see my face for radio every morning. And then of course you can listen to all our content on 977ESPN.com. Go to our SoundCloud page as well. We always podcast everything we do. And, of course, you can interact with me at DrewD977ESPN on Twitter account and 977ESPN for our station. And we always enjoy the opportunity to get on and talk some DC and Alabama football with you, Blake. We're going to get you back on our show soon. And continued success, and thank you for the opportunity tonight to talk a little Alabama LSU. I know it doesn't have maybe the panache of the last few years, but Saturday it's still going to be an emotional game. I think LSU will give it their best shot. I just don't think they've got enough bullets in the gun to compete with Alabama this year.
Drew, I appreciate it. Yeah, and listen, I listen to you guys every morning as much as I can. I love it when you break out that orange Tua jersey. That's my favorite. Just letting you know that. It's my personal favorite. And I love watching you guys in the morning, man. Thanks for coming on. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Blake. Appreciate it.
All right, that is Drew DeArmond from 97.7 The Zone. I do have a little bit of a technical difficulty here with my camera, so I'm fixing that. There we go. Okay. Look, I saw this inside the chat right now. Stephen Miller says that TJ Finley's starting. Ed saying that he's got to talk to Steve Ensminger is pissing me off. You're the head freaking coach. You should know. Everybody better share this because this is about to be a rant. Ed Orgeron, do not go on a press conference and your coach's show and say, I got to talk to Steve. Hell no. That comes down to you, dog. That comes down to you. You're the head coach. You make that decision. You want to talk about pissing me off? If that comment is correct, and I believe everything that Stephen Miller tells me, oh, I got to talk to Steve Ensminger about who's starting on Saturday? Dog, that's not what? Nothing pisses me off more than reading that comment. Nothing. Oh, I got to talk to Steve and see what he wants to do at quarterback. Big Daddy, last time I checked, a couple seasons ago, Nick Saban made a move with a guy by the name of Tua, talking about Tua, and a guy by the name of Tua Tagovailoa, and bringing him off the bench at halftime and a cover two zone, talking about Devontae Smith, hitting Devontae Smith in the end zone to win a national title. That's not up to Steve Ensminger. Y'all want to know why you're getting your asses beat? That's why you're getting your ass beat. I am stunned. Stunned. You're 3-4. You want to know why you're 3-4? Because of that. They can get mad at me all they want, but I've had it. I have had it. Chris says Ed should already know it's his call. Yeah, he should know. You're damn right he should know. How do you go out there and say, I got to talk to Steve about who my starting quarterback is? Don't tell anybody. You don't know. I mean, at some point, there goes my damn camera again. But how in the hell, guys, did they not know? And if you don't know, don't say anything. How does that happen? Y'all want to know what's going on behind the scenes? Listen to that comment. For good Lord's sake. Now the stupid camera's going out, probably because I'm getting so mad banging on stuff that it starts wobbling in it, and the camera goes out. Of course it goes out. You know what? Screw it. This is the last thing we're going to say about it. I was going to go around the SEC, but now that our camera's out, let's just do this. Everybody that is picked to win on Saturday in the SEC is going to win. Give me Missouri. Give me A&M. Give me Florida. Give me Georgia. Give me Bama. Give me Kentucky. Give me Florida. But I'm not going to sit here and act like that this isn't a big deal with Ed Orgeron coming out and saying he's got to talk to Steve. This is not going to get any headlines whatsoever. Guys, I'm still trying to fix my camera. Give me a second. But it's not going to fix anything. Ryan Thibodeau says, calm down, Blake Ruffino. Ryan, calm down for what? You mean to tell me that your head coach ran out on a show and said that he's got to talk to his coordinator about who his starting quarterback is? Y'all want me to calm down? Why should I calm down that a coach at LSU is going to have his first losing season in 20 years at LSU, and we're calming down because he ran out there and said, well, you know what? I have no idea who my starting quarterback is going to be. Marvin asks, what happened? What did I miss? You missed that Ed Orgeron truckled out there and said that he got to talk to his offensive coordinator about who he thinks needs to be the starting quarterback when he should know because it's his team at the end of the damn day. Watch your blood pressure, Blake. Oh, getting paid the big bucks. Well, if he's getting paid the big bucks, he shouldn't run out there and say that. All right. Still having the technical difficulties. Okay, well, guys, since we are having it, we will call the show tonight. Y'all have a good night. Zach Pearson, the former LSU pitcher, will be on with us tomorrow. Let's see. Chris said he will have to ask E, the starting quarter. Oh, my God. I really wish y'all could see my face right now. I really wish you could see my face right now. You mean he's got to ask Steve Ensminger who the oh my God. You don't ask Rudy Poo. You don't need to ask shit. It's AYS. Y'all have a good night. But it's full of shit. That's completely full of shit. Ryan says, but we need to see your ugly mug. John Carter says, who do you think they should start? I don't know. I haven't been at practice this week. But if you don't know and you got to ask your offensive coordinator, that's like going out and asking my mommy, can I go have a sleepover? Oh, poor mommy. Can I have a sleepover? You got to ask mommy? All right. Guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Zach Pearson will be our guest. Y'all have a good night.